I'm Clara, 36 years old, standing in a federal courtroom watching my own mother sit at the defendant's table with that same smug smile she's worn my whole life. 3 weeks ago, I discovered she had stolen $199,000 from my daughter's college fund money I'd saved for 18 years. When I confronted her, she actually laughed and said, "Thanks for the retirement fund, sweetie." But she's not laughing now that the FBI has frozen every account she's touched. Before I tell you how I brought down my own mother, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by family over money, hit subscribe. Here's how 18 years of sacrifice disappeared in one click. 18 years ago, I found out I was pregnant at 18 years old. The boy who'd promised me forever disappeared the moment that second line appeared on the pregnancy test. I stood in my childhood bathroom shaking, knowing I had to tell my mother, Patricia. When I finally found the courage, her response wasn't comfort or support. She looked at me with cold eyes and said, "You've ruined your life. Don't expect me to fix this mess." That was the moment I decided my child would never feel unwanted the way Patricia made me feel. I was going to give this baby everything, especially the education I was now giving up. The next morning, I started looking for work. By the time Lily was born, I was working 3 jobs. Mornings at a diner from 5 to 11, data entry from noon to 5, and cleaning offices from 6 to midnight. My body ached constantly, but every time I looked at Lily's perfect little face, I found strength I didn't know existed. She slept in a dresser drawer because I couldn't afford a crib, but she was warm-fed and loved. When Lily was 6 months old, I opened her college savings account with $20 from my waitress tips. The bank teller looked at me sympathetically when I asked about 529 education savings plans with such a small deposit. But I didn't need sympathy. I needed a future for my daughter. Every month, no matter what, I promised myself, staring at that account balance, she's going to college. For the first 5 years of Lily's life, I lived on nothing. Ramen noodles were my primary food group. I owned 3 outfits, all from thrift stores. My coworkers would invite me out and I'd make excuses because I couldn't afford even a cup of coffee that wasn't free at work. Every penny that didn't go to absolute necessities went into Lily's account. When Lily started school, her teachers immediately noticed her intelligence. She was reading at 3, doing multiplication at 5. Her kindergarten teacher pulled me aside one day and said, "This child is extraordinary. With the right opportunities, she could go anywhere." Anywhere. The word haunted me. Anywhere required money I didn't have. So I worked harder. I enrolled in online accounting courses, studying after Lily went to bed, running on 4 hours of sleep. It took me 6 years to get my associate's degree, but when I finally got promoted from data entry to bookkeeper, my salary jumped from $25,000 to $40,000 a year. I immediately increased Lily's college savings to $500 a month. By the time Lily was 10, she was talking about becoming a doctor. She'd set up a pretend clinic in our tiny apartment, treating her stuffed animals with a toy stethoscope I'd found at Goodwill. She'd check their hearts and prescribe imaginary medicine, her face serious with concentration. "I want to go to Yale, Mommy," she announced one day after researching colleges at the library. "They have the best pre-med program." Yale. I looked up the tuition that night and nearly threw up. Over $80,000 a year, including room and board. But I didn't tell Lily it was impossible. Instead, I started taking freelance accounting work on weekends. 5 years ago, everything changed. My dedication at work paid off when I was promoted to senior accountant with a salary of $75,000. For the first time in my life, I could breathe a little. I moved us to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. I bought Lily clothes that weren't from thrift stores. And I started investing the college fund more aggressively. I taught myself about index funds, compound interest, and dollar cost averaging. Every night after Lily finished her homework, I did mine, learning about financial markets, watching YouTube videos about investment strategies. The account grew faster than I'd dreamed. By Lily's 15th birthday, we had crossed $150,000. That's when Patricia started paying attention. She'd been absent from our lives for years, only calling when she needed something. But suddenly she was interested in how we were doing. She'd call and ask subtle questions about my job, our apartment, whether we were comfortable. "You must be doing well," she'd say, her voice fishing for information. "That's a nice neighborhood you moved to." I should have seen the warning signs. Patricia had never cared about our well-being before, but I was so focused on Lily's future, I missed the predator circling. When Lily got her PSAT scores back, she was in the 99th percentile. Yale started sending her recruitment letters. She'd spread them out on our kitchen table like treasure maps, tracing the Gothic buildings with her finger, reading about research opportunities and medical school placement rates. "We're really going to make it, aren't we, Mom?" she'd asked, her eyes bright with possibility. "Yes, baby," I'd promised, thinking of the account balance growing every month. "We're going to make it." I had no idea that my own mother was about to destroy everything. 2 years ago, Patricia showed up at our door with 2 suitcases and tears in her eyes. Her third husband had divorced her, taking the house and most of their assets. She had nowhere to go, she said. Could she stay with us just temporarily while she got back on her feet? I wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed danger. But Lily had never really had a grandmother, and the way she looked at Patricia with hope in her eyes weakened my resolve. "Just for a few weeks," I said, moving aside to let her in. The few weeks turned into months. Patricia made herself at home in our small 2-bedroom apartment, taking over the living room with her belongings. At first, she seemed grateful. She'd cook dinner while I was at work, help Lily with her homework, tell stories about my childhood that were heavily edited to make her sound like a better mother than she'd been. "Your mom works too hard," Patricia would tell Lily when I came home exhausted. "She needs to learn to relax, enjoy life a little." The comments seemed harmless at first, even caring, but slowly they became more pointed. "It's not healthy to be so obsessed with money," she'd say when she saw me doing freelance work on Saturday mornings. "What kind of example are you setting for Lily?" The irony of Patricia lecturing me about money management when she'd been divorced 3 times for financial irresponsibility wasn't lost on me. But I held my tongue for Lily's sake. Then Patricia started her campaign. "I could help you manage your finances," she offered one evening while I was reconciling bank statements. "I took some accounting courses once. It would free up your time." "Thanks, but I've got it handled," I replied, not looking up from my laptop. "You don't trust your own mother." Her voice took on that wounded tone I remembered from childhood, the one that used to make me feel guilty for having boundaries. "It's not about trust, Mom. I just prefer to handle my own finances." She sulked for days, making passive-aggressive comments about how families should support each other, how she'd sacrificed so much raising me alone. Lily started noticing the tension. "Why don't you let Grandma help?" she asked one night. "She seems really sad." That's when I realized Patricia was manipulating my daughter too. The requests for money started small. She needed a new phone because hers was broken. Then new clothes for job interviews she never seemed to go to. Then medicine for mysterious ailments that required cash payments to alternative healers. Each time I gave her money from my personal emergency fund, never touching Lily's college savings. Each time she'd promised to pay me back once she was working. The job never materialized. 6 months ago, Patricia's manipulation reached new heights. She collapsed in the kitchen one morning, clutching her chest. At the hospital, the doctors found nothing wrong, but Patricia insisted she needed expensive supplements and treatments not covered by Medicaid. "I could die, Clara," she whispered from the hospital bed, gripping my hand. "Is your mother's life worth less than some numbers in an account?" The guilt was suffocating. I gave her $2,000 from my emergency fund, depleting it completely. She recovered miraculously fast, and I later found shopping bags from Nordstrom hidden in the closet. Around this time, Patricia became obsessed with my computer. She'd hover while I worked, asking questions about online banking password security, how transfers worked. I thought she was trying to learn, maybe finally getting serious about managing her own finances. "You should write your passwords down," she suggested one day. "What if something happens to you? How would anyone access the accounts to take care of Lily?" "That's what lawyers and wills are for, Mom." She watched me enter my passwords countless times, always from an angle where she could see the keyboard. I started using my laptop in my bedroom with the door locked, but she'd already seen enough. 2 months ago, she made her most direct attempt. "Clara, we need to talk about Lily's college fund." My spine stiffened. "What about it?" $199,000 is excessive for undergraduate education. You could split it, help me get a small apartment, and still have plenty for Lily. "That money is for Lily's education. End of discussion." Patricia's face transformed the mask of the caring grandmother slipping to reveal something ugly underneath. "I gave you life," she hissed. "I raised you. You owe me." "You were never there," I shot back. "I raised myself from 14 while you partied and dated. I don't owe you anything." She stormed out, and for the next week she played the victim perfectly. She'd sigh loudly when Lily was around, dab at fake tears, mention how some daughters appreciated their mother's sacrifices. Lily started asking questions, and I had to explain without completely destroying her relationship with her grandmother. The night before the theft, Patricia was unusually pleasant. She made Lily's favorite dinner, helped her study for her calculus test, even offered to do the dishes. She hugged us both goodnight, something she rarely did. "Sleep well, my girls," she said, smiling. "Tomorrow's a new day." I should have known. That smile was the same one she'd worn when she'd stolen money from my piggy bank when I was 7, when she'd sold my bicycle for drug money when I was 12, when she'd emptied my savings account the day I turned 18. But I was tired, and Lily was happy, and I let my guard down. That was my mistake. 3 weeks ago, on a Monday morning that started like any other, I sat at my desk with my coffee ready to finalize plans for college tours with Lily. Yale was first on our list, followed by Harvard and Johns Hopkins. The trips would be expensive, but this was the moment we'd been working toward for 18 years. I logged into the college savings account to transfer money for deposits on hotels and tour registrations. The page loaded, and the number on the screen didn't make sense. Balance, $0. I refreshed the page. Still zero. I cleared my browser cache, logged out, and back in. Zero. My hands started shaking so violently, I knocked over my coffee, the hot liquid spreading across my desk, soaking into papers I didn't even see. This had to be a system error. Banks had glitches. Technology failed. I called the bank with trembling fingers, reading my account number 3 times because my vision was blurring. The representative's voice was professional, calm, infuriating in its normalcy. "I show a large withdrawal made on Friday, ma'am. The full balance was transferred via online banking." "That's impossible. I didn't make any withdrawal." "The transaction was completed with proper credentials at 3:47 a.m. from your registered IP address." Friday, 3 days ago, while I was sleeping 10 feet away from the computer. "Where did the money go?" My voice sounded strange, detached, like it belonged to someone else. "It appears to have been transferred to an international account. I can send you the transaction details, but you'll need to file a fraud report immediately if this was unauthorized." International account. Fraud report. The words swirled in my mind as I drove home, breaking every speed limit, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Patricia was on the couch, watching her stories, perfectly relaxed, eating chips from the bag. She looked up when I burst through the door, and I saw it in her eyes. She knew why I was there. "Where's Lily's college money?" The words came out as a scream. She actually smiled. Then she laughed, a sound that transported me back to every childhood moment when she'd taken something from me and found my pain amusing. "Thanks for the retirement fund, sweetie. I gave you life, you owe me this." The confession was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that for a moment I couldn't process it. This was my mother, the woman who had carried me for 9 months, who had presumably loved me once, who was living in my home, eating my food, pretending to be a grandmother to my child. "You stole from your granddaughter. You stole her future." Patricia rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Oh, please, she'll be fine. Lots of kids don't go to college. You didn't go to a fancy school, and look, you turned out okay. Making decent money as an accountant." "I turned out okay. I worked 3 jobs while raising a baby alone because you wouldn't help me. I sacrificed everything so Lily wouldn't have to live like that." "Well, I sacrificed too." Patricia snapped, the fake sweetness disappearing. 18 years of my life wasted on an ungrateful brat who hoards money while her mother struggles. You haven't struggled a day in your life. You've lived off men, off me, off anyone stupid enough to trust you. She stood up, brushing chip crumbs off her lap. "I watched you type that password plenty of times. It wasn't hard to figure out. Your father's birthday. Really, Clara. That's basic. My father, who died when I was 2, whose birthday was one of the few things I had of him. How did you move it internationally? You can barely use email." She preened, then proud of her cleverness. I've been researching. Offshore accounts in Belize don't cooperate with U.S. authorities. That money is untouchable now. It's mine. I'll call the police. Go ahead. It's a family matter. They'll say it's a civil issue. By the time you get a lawyer go to court, I'll have spent it all. The front door opened, and Lily walked in from school, her backpack heavy with AP textbooks, her Yale sweatshirt slightly too big on her small frame. She took one look at my face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. "Mom, what happened?" Patricia turned to her granddaughter with that same cruel smile. "Community college isn't that bad, sweetheart. Lots of people do just fine without Ivy League degrees." The confusion on Lily's face shifted to understanding then, to devastation, as the pieces clicked together. Her college fund, her grandmother, her future. "You stole from me." Lily's voice was small, disbelieving. "You stole my college money." "I took what was owed to me," Patricia said, heading to her room. "Your mother will figure something out. She always does." Lily collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. 18 years of dreams crashing down in a single moment of betrayal. But as I held my daughter, feeling her heartbreak in every sob, something cold and determined settled in my chest. Patricia thought she'd won. She thought I was still that powerless child she could steal from without consequences. She was wrong. The moment Lily fell asleep that night, exhausted from crying, I went to work. Patricia had made one crucial mistake in her gloating. She'd confirmed everything while I had my phone recording in my pocket. Her confession, her description of watching me type passwords, her bragging about offshore accounts, all of it captured in crystal clear audio. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop legal pad and every financial document I'd accumulated over 18 years. If Patricia thought she was dealing with just another victim, she was about to learn what a senior accountant with forensic training could do when her daughter's future was at stake. First, I called the police. The officer who took my report seemed sympathetic, but confirmed what Patricia had said. Family financial disputes were often civil matters. However, the amount involved and the international transfer changed things. "This qualifies as grand theft and wire fraud," Officer Martinez explained. "With that amount and international involvement, you need to contact the FBI." The FBI. The words should have been intimidating, but they gave me hope. While waiting for morning to contact federal authorities, I began my forensic analysis. Every transaction told a story, and Patricia, despite her research, had left breadcrumbs everywhere. The offshore account in Belize was her first mistake. While Belize banks don't readily cooperate with U.S. authorities, they do comply with proper federal warrants, especially involving wire fraud. More importantly, Patricia had to get the money out to use it, and that's where she'd get caught. By 6 a.m., I'd traced 3 transactions Patricia had already made from the offshore account. 2 purchases from luxury retailers that shipped to her friend Donna's address, and 1 deposit back to a U.S. account for a cruise booking. Each transaction was a federal crime, each one adding years to potential prison time. I was at the FBI field office when they opened at 8, my documentation organized in a binder with tabs. Agent Sarah Morrison, a financial crime specialist, reviewed my work with increasing interest. "This is impressively thorough," she said, examining my transaction timeline. "You've done half our work for us." "I'm an accountant. Documentation is what I do." "Well, you've documented your mother right into federal prison." Agent Morrison explained the charges Patricia faced. Wire fraud across state lines carried up to 20 years. Grand theft over $100,000 was another 10. Identity theft and computer fraud added 5 more. Patricia was looking at potentially 35 years in federal prison. "But I want the money back," I said. "My daughter needs it for college." "Asset recovery is our priority. The good news is your mother isn't as clever as she thinks. These offshore accounts, the ones criminals read about online, they're not as protected as advertised, especially when we're involved." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. They wouldn't arrest Patricia immediately. Instead, they'd watch her document every transaction, build an airtight case, while freezing her ability to dissipate the assets. "We call it a financial cage," Agent Morrison explained. "She'll think she's free, but every move she makes tightens the trap." I went home that afternoon to find Patricia packing a suitcase, humming happily. She'd bought new clothes with my daughter's money designer items with tags still attached. Going somewhere, I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Cruise to the Bahamas next week. I deserve a vacation after all the stress you've put me through. The stress I'd put her through. The audacity was breathtaking. Enjoy yourself, I said, knowing FBI agents were already preparing to seize that cruise booking. For 3 days, I pretended to be defeated. I went to work, came home silent, avoided Patricia's smug looks. She interpreted my silence as surrender, becoming increasingly careless. She called Donna on speakerphone, bragging about her investment windfall and the stupid little account she'd drained. Every word was being recorded by federal agents. On the 4th day, Patricia made her biggest mistake. She tried to wire $50,000 from the offshore account to purchase a condo in Florida. The transaction triggered the federal monitoring system Agent Morrison had put in place. Within hours, a warrant was issued for her arrest. But Patricia didn't know that yet. She was at the nail salon getting a manicure paid for with a credit card linked to the offshore account. She was showing the technician photos of the condo describing her new life in Florida when Agent Morrison and her team walked in. Patricia Coleman, you're under arrest for wire fraud, grand theft, and identity theft. The shock on Patricia's face was almost worth the pain she'd caused. Almost. You called the FBI on your own mother, she shrieked as they cuffed her, her freshly painted nails smearing against the metal. You stole from your own granddaughter, I replied. Family means nothing to you. Why should it mean anything to me? As they led her out, everyone in the salon staring, Patricia tried one last manipulation. Clara, please, I'm your mother. I'm sorry. But I was done. 18 years of sacrifice had taught me that sorry meant nothing without change, and Patricia would never change. She'd stolen from her granddaughter without remorse. Now she'd face the consequences. The best part came that evening when Agent Morrison called. We've frozen everything. Every account she touched, every transaction she made, it's all locked down. Your mother can't access a penny. Within 24 hours of Patricia's arrest, her entire financial network began collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. The FBI's asset freeze was comprehensive and ruthless. Not only was the offshore account locked, but every domestic account Patricia had ever touched was frozen pending investigation. Her friend Donna called me in a panic that evening. The FBI had arrived at her door with a warrant seizing the designer handbags and jewelry Patricia had shipped to her address. I didn't know they were bought with stolen money, Donna pleaded. Patricia said she'd gotten an inheritance. An inheritance from a 16-year-old's college fund, I replied coldly. Donna started crying. They froze my accounts too. They said I received stolen goods. Clara, I have bills to pay. I have rent due. Then you should have chosen better friends. The scope of the investigation expanded as Agent Morrison's team dug deeper. Patricia had been planning this theft for months, researching offshore banking, international wire transfers, even consulting with a shady financial advisor who specialized in asset hiding. Every communication was evidence, every search history, another nail in her legal coffin. At Patricia's bail hearing, she stood in an orange jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance already crumbling after just 2 days in federal custody. No designer clothes, no fresh manicure, just a 62-year-old woman finally facing consequences. The prosecutor laid out the charges with clinical precision: wire fraud, grand theft, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and a new charge that made my stomach turn: elder abuse. The irony was spectacular. Patricia had claimed on some documents that I'd promised her the money as care for an elderly parent, making herself both the perpetrator and supposed victim. Your Honor, Patricia's court-appointed attorney argued, this is a family dispute that's been blown out of proportion. My client is a senior citizen with health issues who made an error in judgment regarding family finances. The judge, a stern woman named Catherine Chen, wasn't buying it. An error in judgment. She stole $199,000 from her granddaughter's college fund. She showed premeditation conspiracy and zero remorse until she was caught. Bail is set at $500,000. Patricia gasped. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Perhaps from the offshore account you bragged about, Judge Chen replied dryly. Oh, wait, that's frozen because it contains stolen funds. Patricia turned to me, her eyes pleading. but I stared straight ahead. She'd made her choice when she clicked transfer on that money. Now she'd live with it. The real victory came during discovery. Agent Morrison called me with updates as they unraveled Patricia's plans. She'd already put deposits on a Florida condo, booked 3 cruises, and incredibly had consulted with a plastic surgeon about a $70,000 full-body makeover. She was going to use your daughter's education fund for a tummy tuck and facelift, Agent Morrison said, disgust evident in her voice. But the investigation also revealed something beautiful. When local news picked up the story titled, "Grandmother Steals Granddaughter's Yale Dreams," the community responded with overwhelming support. A GoFundMe started by my coworkers raised $30,000 in 48 hours. Local businesses offered Lily part-time jobs to help rebuild her savings. The story went viral on social media with the hashtag #JusticeForLily. Then came the call that changed everything. "Ms. Coleman, this is Richard Blackstone." The name was vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. "I read about your situation in the news. I'm a Yale alumnus and tech entrepreneur. No child should lose their education because of family betrayal. I'd like to help." "Mr. Blackstone, that's very generous, but we can't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's an investment in a brilliant young woman's future. I've spoken with Yale's admissions office. They're aware of Lily's situation and her exceptional academics. With my recommendation and a full scholarship from my foundation, she's guaranteed admission." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Ms. Coleman, are you there?" "Why?" I managed to whisper. "Why would you do this?" "Because 30 years ago, someone did it for me when my family situation imploded. This is me paying it forward. Lily won't have to worry about tuition, room, board, or books. She just has to keep her grades up and pursue her dreams." I sobbed, then 18 years of stress and fear dissolving in an instant. Lily would go to Yale. Despite Patricia's betrayal, maybe even because of it, my daughter would achieve her dreams. When I told Lily that evening, she didn't believe me at first. Full scholarship. Everything covered. Everything, baby. Yale wants you. She launched herself into my arms, crying and laughing simultaneously. "We did it, Mom. Despite Grandma, despite everything, we did it." "You did it," I corrected. "Your grades, your dedication, your character. That's what impressed them." The preliminary hearing was set for the following week. Patricia's attorney reached out with a plea deal offer. If I dropped the charges, Patricia would sign over all rights to any family assets and never contact us again. She's delusional. Carla Hendricks, the attorney I'd hired with a loan against my 401k, laughed. "Federal charges don't get dropped because she promises to go away. She's looking at minimum 10 years. The day before the hearing, a letter arrived from federal prison. Patricia's handwriting still pretentiously elegant, even from a jail cell. "My dearest Clara," it began, "I know you're angry, but try to understand. I gave you life. I sacrificed my youth, my body, my dreams for you. The money was simply delayed compensation for 18 years of motherhood. Surely you can understand that. Drop these ridiculous charges, and I promise to be the mother and grandmother you always wanted. We can start fresh. Love, Mom." I showed the letter to Agent Morrison, who added it to the evidence file. "She's attempting to manipulate you even from federal custody," she noted. "This shows zero acceptance of responsibility." The preliminary hearing arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. I sat in the gallery with Lily, who'd insisted on attending despite my concerns. "I need to see this through," she said with maturity beyond her 16 years. "I need to see justice happen." Patricia entered in shackles, the reality of her situation evident in her hollow eyes and trembling hands. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on her frame. Federal custody had stripped away all her pretenses. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. Bank statements, wire transfer records, Patricia's recorded confession, her online research history showing months of planning. The cruise bookings made with stolen funds, the designer purchases, the condo deposit. "Your Honor," the prosecutor concluded, "the defendant showed premeditation, zero remorse, and a callous disregard for her granddaughter's future. We're seeking the maximum sentence." The trial began 6 weeks later, and by then Patricia's story had become a cautionary tale across social media. News outlets picked it up as a human interest story, the grandmother who stole her granddaughter's Yale dreams, but what they didn't capture was the daily reality of rebuilding trust in a shattered family. Lily had started therapy to process the betrayal. Her therapist, Dr. Amanda Wells, explained that family financial abuse creates unique trauma. When someone who should protect you instead preys on you, it fundamentally breaks your ability to trust, she told us. Lily needs to understand this wasn't her fault. The trial lasted 4 days. Patricia entered the courtroom each day, looking increasingly defeated. Her attorney, a young public defender named Marcus Torres, did his best with an impossible case. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, "what you have here is a family dispute that should have been handled privately. My client, a 62-year-old woman with health issues, made a terrible mistake born from desperation and a misguided sense of entitlement." But the prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Park, systematically destroyed any sympathy Patricia might have garnered. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated theft that took months of planning. The defendant researched offshore accounts, studied wire transfer procedures, watched her daughter enter passwords over 100 times, according to her own confession. She stole from a 16-year-old child her own granddaughter and laughed about it. When Patricia took the stand, she tried to play the victim one last time. She cried prettily, or tried to, though months without Botox had left her looking her actual age. "I was desperate," she sobbed. "My daughter had all this money saved while I was struggling. I just wanted a small portion for my retirement. I didn't mean to take it all." But on cross-examination, Prosecutor Park eviscerated her testimony. "Mrs. Coleman, you said you only wanted a small portion. How do you explain transferring the entire balance?" "I got confused with the computer." "Confused? You researched offshore banking for 3 months. You knew exactly what you were doing." "Clara always cared more about Lily than me." "So you punished a 16-year-old for your daughter's attention." Patricia had no answer. The most powerful moment came when Lily testified. She walked to the stand with remarkable composure for a teenager facing her grandmother in federal court. "She pretended to love me," Lily said, her voice clear and steady. "She helped with my homework, came to my school plays, acted like the grandmother I'd always wanted. But it was all a lie to get access to my college fund." "How has this affected you?" Prosecutor Park asked gently. "I have nightmares about losing Yale. I watch my mom work 18-hour days trying to rebuild what was stolen. I can't trust anyone who says they care about me because the person who was supposed to love me unconditionally saw me as nothing but a bank account." Several jurors were crying by the time Lily finished. Patricia's friend Donna testified as a prosecution witness to avoid charges. She revealed that Patricia had been planning this for over a year, long before she'd moved in with us. "She said Clara owed her for giving birth to her," Donna testified. "She said the money was rightfully hers, and she was just taking what she deserved." Character witnesses for the prosecution included my boss, who testified about my dedication and sacrifice for Lily's education. Lily's teachers spoke about her brilliance and how she'd sobbed in the guidance counselor's office after the theft. Even our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, testified about seeing me come home exhausted every night while Patricia lounged on the porch. Patricia's defense called no character witnesses. Who would speak for her? The ex-husbands she'd driven away, the friends she'd borrowed money from and never repaid, the family members she'd alienated over decades of manipulation. In closing arguments, Prosecutor Park held up a photo of Lily at her science fair, holding her first-place trophy. "This is who Patricia Coleman stole from. Not just money, but dreams, trust, and security. She took 18 years of sacrifice and clicked it away for cruise tickets and designer bags. This wasn't desperation. This was greed, pure and simple." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Patricia collapsed in her chair as the verdict was read. Wire fraud guilty, grand theft guilty, identity theft guilty, conspiracy to commit fraud guilty. Judge Chen scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Patricia was remanded to custody, her bail revoked due to flight risk given her offshore account activities. As court officers led her away, Patricia turned to me one last time. "I'm your mother," she said, as if that explained and excused everything. "No, I replied, my voice carrying across the courtroom. "You're the woman who gave birth to me. A mother protects her children. You protected only yourself." The sentencing hearing was almost anticlimactic after the emotional trial. Judge Chen had reviewed all the evidence, the victim impact statements, the psychiatric evaluation that diagnosed Patricia with narcissistic personality disorder. "Mrs. Coleman," the judge began, "in 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such a calculated betrayal of family trust. You stole from your granddaughter without remorse, attempted to manipulate the justice system, and even now show no genuine acceptance of responsibility." Patricia stood for sentencing, her attorney's hand on her elbow. "I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. You are ordered to pay full restitution of $199,000 plus interest and penalties." 12 years. Patricia would be 74 when released if she survived that long. "Your Honor, my client is elderly," Attorney Torres protested. "Your client is 62 and healthy enough to plan international fraud," Judge Chen replied. "Age doesn't excuse cruelty." As they led Patricia away, she didn't look back. The grandmother who'd pretended to love my daughter, the mother who'd never truly loved me, disappeared into the federal system. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and questions. But I only had eyes for Lily, who stood tall despite everything she'd endured. "How do you feel about the sentence?" a reporter asked her. Lily considered the question carefully. "I feel like justice exists. My grandmother tried to steal my future, but she only stole money. My future is stronger than ever because I learned that integrity matters more than wealth." 6 months have passed since Patricia was sentenced to federal prison. The woman who laughed about stealing my daughter's future now spends her days in a concrete cell, her designer dreams replaced by prison gray. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about resilience, recovery, and the beautiful truth that sometimes when family fails you, the universe conspires to lift you up. The FBI recovered $147,000 from the frozen accounts. Patricia had managed to spend $52,000 in just 3 weeks on luxury items that were seized and auctioned. The auction raised another $30,000, which was applied to restitution. Combined with the GoFundMe and Richard Blackstone's scholarship, Lily's college fund was actually larger than before. Mr. Blackstone became more than just a benefactor. He became a mentor, introducing Lily to Yale professors, arranging summer internships at biotech companies, ensuring she had every opportunity to succeed. When I tried to thank him, he simply said, "Success is meaningless if you don't lift others up." The story attracted the attention of financial abuse prevention organizations. I was invited to speak at conferences about recognizing manipulation tactics, protecting assets from family predators, and the importance of financial literacy. What started as a nightmare became a platform to help others. At one conference, a woman approached me afterward with tears in her eyes. "My brother did the same thing with our mother's estate," she said. "I thought I was alone, that family betrayal was too shameful to discuss. Thank you for showing me it's not my fault." These connections, these moments of shared understanding began healing something in me I didn't know was broken. Patricia's betrayal wasn't just about money. It was the culmination of a lifetime of emotional abuse I'd normalized because she was my mother. Dr. Wells, who continued working with both Lily and me, helped me understand the patterns. "Your mother's narcissistic personality meant she could never truly love anyone," she explained. "You spent your childhood trying to earn love that didn't exist, then repeated that pattern by letting her back into your life." "I wanted Lily to have a grandmother," I admitted. "You wanted to have a mother. That's completely normal. But Patricia was incapable of being either." The healing process wasn't linear. Some days I'd find myself crying in my car, grieving not for Patricia, but for the mother I never had. Other days, rage would surge through me at the audacity of her betrayal. But gradually, with therapy and time, I found peace. My company, impressed by my forensic accounting work on Patricia's case, promoted me to Director of Forensic Accounting. The salary increase to $120,000 made me cry at my desk. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I could save for retirement, take vacations, buy things without calculating how many hours of work they represented. "You deserve this," my boss Harold Stevens said. Your analytical skills during your mother's investigation were exceptional. The FBI agent called you a natural forensic accountant. The promotion meant I could finally give Lily experiences I'd never afforded before. We traveled to see colleges, not just Yale, but Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. Each campus tour was a victory lap for 18 years of sacrifice. From prison, Patricia sent letters monthly, each one a masterclass in manipulation. She was dying, she wasn't. She was being mistreated, she wasn't. She'd found God, she hadn't. She forgave me for betraying her, the audacity. I returned every letter unopened, marked, "Return to sender no longer at this address." The address hadn't changed, but the person who lived there had. I was no longer the daughter desperate for scraps of maternal approval. One letter came from Patricia's cellmate Maria, a woman serving time for check fraud. "Your mother talks about you constantly," Maria wrote. "She tells everyone you're a terrible daughter who abandoned her, but she also reads every news article about your daughter's success. She knows Lily got into Yale early admission. She cried that night, though she'll never admit it. I think she finally understands what she lost." I didn't reply, but I kept that letter. It was proof that somewhere beneath the narcissism and greed, Patricia had the capacity to recognize her loss. Not enough to change, never enough to truly repent, but enough to suffer the consequences. Lily's early admission to Yale came with a full scholarship from the Blackstone Foundation, plus additional grants she'd earned through her essay about overcoming family betrayal. The admissions committee specifically mentioned her resilience and maturity as factors in their decision. "Most students write about achievements," the admissions officer told us. "Lily wrote about integrity. She described watching you rebuild after betrayal and learning that character matters more than wealth. That's the kind of student who changes the world." The night before Lily left for Yale, we sat on our apartment balcony, the same one where I'd calculated college costs on a calculator 18 years ago, with a baby in my arms. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Lily said, curling up in the chair beside me. "Do you regret what happened with Grandma?" I considered the question carefully. "I regret that Patricia was incapable of love. I regret that you experienced betrayal so young. But the actual events, no. They revealed truth we needed to see." "It made us stronger," Lily said softly. "It made us conscious of our strength," I corrected. "We were always strong. Patricia's betrayal just proved it." Lily started at Yale 2 months ago. She calls every Sunday bubbling with excitement about organic chemistry and anatomy classes. She's joined the Pre-Med Society and volunteers at the local hospital. Her roommate is the daughter of immigrants who worked 3 jobs to send her to college, and they understand each other in ways privileged kids never could. "Mom," she said in our last call, "my professor asked why I wanted to become a doctor. I told him about watching you sacrifice everything for my education, about Grandma trying to steal it, about Mr. Blackstone paying it forward. I said I wanted to be the kind of doctor who treats people others ignore, who sees beyond bank accounts to human worth. He said that's exactly why Yale accepted me." Last week I received notice that Patricia had been transferred to a minimum security facility due to good behavior. She'll be eligible for parole in 8 years instead of 12. The notification asked if I wanted to submit a victim impact statement for her parole file. I wrote one sentence: "Actions have consequences, and forgiveness without genuine repentance enables future harm." The financial recovery was complete, but the emotional recovery continued. I started dating for the first time since Lily's father abandoned us. James, a divorced father of 2, understood the complexity of family betrayal. His ex-wife had emptied their children's college funds for gambling debts. "The money can be replaced," he said on our 3rd date. "The trust can't." "But we rebuild anyway," I replied. "For our children, for ourselves, for the proof that we're more than what was taken from us." I still work with the FBI, occasionally consulting on family fraud cases. Agent Morrison calls me their secret weapon for understanding how family members exploit trust. Each case breaks my heart a little, another family destroyed by greed disguised as love. But there's satisfaction in helping victims recover assets, in seeing predators face consequences, in proving that family connection doesn't exempt anyone from justice. Patricia thought blood relation was a license to steal. The federal prison system taught her otherwise. Sometimes I drive past the federal courthouse where Patricia was sentenced. I remember standing there with Lily watching my mother disappear in shackles, feeling simultaneously heartbroken and liberated. She'd stolen money but inadvertently given us freedom from toxic obligation. The money came back with interest from the restitution order. Lily's education was secured beyond our wildest dreams. My career advanced because of skills I developed fighting Patricia's theft. Even my ability to trust and love, which Patricia tried to destroy, grew stronger through conscious healing. Patricia thought she was stealing $199,000. What she actually stole was her last chance at redemption, her relationship with her granddaughter, and any possibility of dying surrounded by family instead of federal inmates. The notification for the victim impact statement asked if I wanted updates on Patricia's status. I checked no. I don't need to know when she's released where she goes or what becomes of her. That chapter is closed, the lesson learned, the price paid by everyone involved. Lily will graduate from Yale in 3.5 years. She's already planning medical school applications, research projects, and ways to pay forward what she's received. Mr. Blackstone has promised to fund her medical school too, but Lily wants to earn scholarships to prove she's worthy beyond sympathy for her story. "I'm not the girl whose grandmother stole from her," she told me firmly. "I'm the woman who became a doctor despite it." And that's the real victory. Patricia tried to define us by her betrayal to make us victims of her greed. Instead, we defined ourselves by our response with integrity, resilience, and the radical act of succeeding despite her. My mother stole $199,000 and laughed. The FBI froze everything she touched. But in the end, what really defeated Patricia wasn't the justice system, or the prison sentence, or the financial recovery. It was Lily walking onto Yale's campus with her head held high, living the dream Patricia tried to steal. It was me finding professional success that had nothing to do with manipulation or theft. It was both of us learning that family isn't about blood, but about choosing to protect and uplift each other. Patricia gave me life as she loved to remind me, but I gave that life meaning through sacrifice she couldn't understand and love she couldn't feel. And when she tried to steal the fruits of that sacrifice, she learned what 18 years of single motherhood had taught me: you can take money, but you can't take character. The money came back. Patricia never will. And that's exactly how it should be. Thank you for listening to my story, to every painful detail of how trust becomes betrayal and how betrayal becomes strength. If you've experienced family financial abuse, please share your story in the comments. You're not alone and your voice matters. Hit that like button if you believe in justice and accountability, even when it means standing up to family. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and recovery, and share this video with anyone who needs to know that family doesn't have permission to harm you just because you share DNA. Remember, the people who truly love you will never try to steal your future. They'll sacrifice to build it. Thank you for being here, for witnessing our journey, and for understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold someone accountable for their choices. Until next time, this is Clara reminding you that your dreams are worth protecting, even from the people who should protect them with you.